Let's see what the title says. Yes, what was I thinking? No, I am prepared. When I first wrote that, I actually wrote that as, what were you thinking? And I'm thinking, yeah, right, what are you thinking? You're always wrong. But no, that's not what I'm trying to talk about. What was I thinking is what we're thinking, because this is usually when we start this and we say, what was I thinking, it's after the fact. The cow has left the barn and all that, and after what could have been has already gotten up and left. So, but perhaps even more importantly than the what was I thinking is the why was I thinking it. So much of the time, we are led by these subconscious urges and thoughts that we don't even know exist, but they lead our life almost continuously. Our reactions, our responses, our behaviors are like that. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who was a modern-day metaphysician and a workshop leader and an author, maybe many of you have heard that, wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Now, that's a kind of a strange title, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And what he was really talking about exactly what the title means. What was I thinking? And where does this come from? Normally, we live our lives over and over again, doing the same things over and over again. And what he's suggesting is that we are living from false beliefs. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to use 3 stories to enlighten, to kind of expand this so that we really understand what this title means and what Joe Dispenza meant as well. So the first, and these are real people, real events, real situations. So the first one I want to talk about was someone that I was working with as a client when I was acting as a hypnotherapist and a licensed hypnotherapist in New Mexico. And the woman came in to speak with me, and she was concerned because she had no ability to stop eating, especially if she was in a relationship. She was just voracious, and everything was about food, and she lost many relationships because of this. And she knew that something was wrong, but she didn't know what it was because it didn't seem normal to her. So in hypnotherapy, we were able to take her back to another time and place where she was about 4 years old, and it was her birthday party. Great day for her. And eventually the cake came out, and she blew all the candles out, and her mother came over and was cutting the cake and was serving everybody. And her mother looked back over at the cake and saw this cute, beautiful 4-year-old hand over fist in the cake, slamming it in her face, icing everywhere. And maybe we've seen that. I've seen that as well. It's a beautiful thing. It's so cute. And so, I don't know, all that energy all rolled up into one little 4-year-old. It's awesome. But at the same time, her mother came up to kind of, control the situation a little bit, and her mother was talking to a friend of hers right there at the table, and she said, this was my daughter's favorite cake. She loves this cake, and I baked it especially for her birthday. And she said, I always love how she eats like that because it shows me how much she loves me. Eating shows her how much she loved her. She, in that moment, unknowingly implanted that seed of thought into that little girl at 4 years old that in order to show someone love, it had to be connected with food. And when she was trying to be in a relationship, she was obsessive by it. And it was a real issue for her. So having discovered that in this hypnotherapy session, it sort of transformed her. She all of a sudden realized that this was something buried deep inside of her. It was a false belief, a false understanding. And as she began to let go of it, her life was transformed. And after the 3rd session, she wasn't even sure why she came because that thought had disappeared. It was that powerful for her. The next person I want to talk about is another young woman who grew up in small town Ohio in the mid-1800s. And her father was part of the founding members of this small Ohio town. Her name was Mary Caroline. And she tended to be not well a lot of the times. I don't know whether it was allergies, who knows what it was, but she was sick a lot of the time. And so she would go into town with her mother, frequently, of course. And since the mother was like the wife of the founder of the city, the other women would gather around and they would talk and do all the things that people do like that. And frequently the other women would say, you know, how is poor Mary Caroline? You know, we've heard she's sick. And Mary Caroline was standing right here, heard her mother say, I just don't know what we're going to do with this little girl. She's so sick all the time. She's just our sickly little girl. And you know, we just went to the last doctor, and he said that she's prone to consumption. Now, consumption is tuberculosis back then, and there was no cure of any kind in the middle 1800s for tuberculosis. So right then, she implanted those thoughts into that little girl, who carried those thoughts with her for the next 40 years. This family was also devoutly religious, very fundamentally religious. So you can also imagine how many times her friends said, that's okay, it's just God's will that your daughter is this way. Well, I don't believe that. The God that I believe in does not have anything to do with people being sick. That's just not the truth. This same woman grew up, got married, ended up back in the Midwest, and heard that there was someone coming to speak in that city, and she and her girlfriends and her husband went to hear this man speak. And in that talk, he said that you are a child of God, and therefore you do not inherit illness. And what she learned from that was that there was no God out there who was willing her to be sick. And that woman went on to live another 45 years, because from that transformational thought, she changed her mind to realize that she had power that she did not know about. She had power to heal herself. And in fact, she did. That woman grew up to be Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity movement. So the last story I want to talk about is somewhat similar, is about a young man who had two brothers, a mother and a dad. And when he was 2 years old, his father abandoned his family, and he would never see him again. 2 years old, left with two brothers and a mom to fend for themselves. He grew up and went to school and did well in school and was relatively successful, became a psychologist because unhealed healers become psychologists. And at some point in time, he heard that from a distant relative that his father had passed away in Biloxi, Mississippi. And it just turns out, as synchronicity does at times, that he was going to be assigned to an internship in Columbus, Mississippi, which is only about an hour and a half away. And he decided at that time he was going to get some closure. He was going to see if he could find his father's grave in Biloxi. And he did that. The story goes is that he went to rent a car to make that drive, and it was a brand new car. It literally had less than 1 mile on the odometer when he got it. And when he went to put the seatbelt on, there were no seatbelts. So he thought, well, maybe they just haven't installed it. So he pulls the seat out. The old days, there were bench seats, and you could actually pop them loose and get underneath them. And lo and behold, there were the brand new seatbelts in the car. And so he said, well, great, I've got this, I'll fix this. And as he was taking the plastic off the seatbelt, a card fell out of this plastic. And the card was for the Candlelight Inn in Biloxi, Mississippi. And he thought that was kind of strange, to say the least. Didn't think a lot of it, but it was pretty strange that there would even be a card in that. So he drives to Biloxi, stops at a gas station, pulls out the phone book. Anybody remember phone books? Pulls out the phone book, yellow pages. I remember phone books, unfortunately. And looks up cemeteries, and there are 3 cemeteries in Biloxi. Calls the first 2, and no answer, no response. Called the third one, and got somebody on the phone. And he told them, this man told the attendant his father's full name and when approximately he thought he might have passed away. The guy was gone for about 10 minutes. And this gentleman was just about ready to hang up the phone. I'm done with this. What am I thinking? Again, what am I thinking? And finally the man came back and said, yes, your dad is buried here. And so he was asked, well, can I come by right now? I know it's getting late. And the attendant said, well, sure, I'll just leave the gate unlocked for you. Just latch it when you leave. And he said, you won't have any trouble finding it because it's right next to the Candlelight Inn. Now, how are those things possible? I mean, it shakes me up just thinking about that. So this man does find his father's grave. And this man has been dead for 10 years. And this man stands over the grave and weeps and yells and screams and vents all of his anger, all of the, why didn't you love me enough to stay? All of these things were pouring out of this man. And he was there for almost a little more than 2 hours. But at the sort of the end, something began to happen to him. Something was transforming for him there, and he actually felt his father's spirit around him. And in that moment, he had this transformational forgiveness process that took over in him. And that experience changed his life forever. He grew up to be Dr. Wayne Dyer. Dr. Wayne Dyer, yeah. So sometimes we think with all of our problems that we're just alone and nobody is like us and we have, it's just me and what's wrong with me. But the truth is, almost everybody has these issues within us. Almost everybody comes from a place of not understanding what's going on. The connecting link between these 3 stories is the fact that they all really made up stories about the situation and the events they were in that weren't true. Now, we all do that, don't we? We get our minds just go crazy and around, and we make up stories that aren't true, and we physically have the response to those made up stories. It's remarkable. Our bodies don't know the difference between the truth and the story. They just do not know the difference. So, what do we do now? So Dr. Wayne Dyer really spoke about the need to begin with forgiveness first. And I think the first thing we have to do is try to look back on our lives and think in terms of whether we are responding normally to the event or abnormally crazy to the event. We all do that. If you see that your reaction is out of sync with the event, then it's a good bet that there's something within you, within your subconscious, within that little girl or little boy still in charge. You think they'd get tired after a while, right? But they don't. They just stay there and they feed you all this false information over and over and over again. And it's crazy making. It's truly crazy making. But if you can forgive yourself to listening to those stories and forgive yourself for believing those stories because you're the one who allowed it, you're the one who created it, you're at the first step of transforming our lives. First step of transforming our lives. And then as Dr. Wayne Dyer, as we go forward, he's speaking about living a positive life. Now, way too often I'm in a negative mode. Way too often I am in judgmental mode. Way too often I get stuck over here when I really want to be in this positive place. And that's the key to a great life, the key to peace in our lives, is to become more and more aware of what we're really saying. Everything that comes out of our mouth, every behavior is a thought. It starts with a thought. It is not that I'm reacting to you or this or that. It's that my thought is causing me to react this way to this event. So we are not helpless, and it is not hopeless. We are totally in charge. So what I'd like to do is take these thoughts into meditation now, if you would. So if you'll place your feet on the floor and relax for a second, close your eyes if you wish. And the first thing that let's do is to take a real deep breath of forgiveness in, knowing that as we let it out, it creates a new life. Another breath of forgiveness in. And as we let it out, it creates this new, incredible, transformative life. It's what we really want. It's what we really desire. It's what we really deserve. But somehow we've forgotten. Now let's take another breath, and this time let's bring in the concept of a positive life. And breathe out the clarity of living a new life in a positive way. Set aside the need to be negative any longer and become aware every minute of the day about what you're saying, not only to others, but all of the self-talk that is within us, all the times we say negative things about our own self. Let us become aware of those moments and kindly and peacefully just say, it's okay. It's okay, I've got your back. You don't have to worry anymore. I'm here for you and with you. Because you see, my friends, we are speaking to that small little girl or boy within us that really always just wanted to be loved. Always. See that little child in your mind's eye and just wrap your arms around her or him and tell them that they're okay. You're with them, and you will always be with them. And together, you will build a new life. You will build a new life of peace and compassion and love. Because as we change our thoughts, we will change our world. That is a guarantee. Let's hold on to that just for a moment and just see yourselves and feel yourself transforming into that person you have always been meant to be. A person filled with love and laughter and clarity and love. See yourself holding that little 4-year-old child within you, or whatever age it means for you. Wrap your arms around them and tell them you love them. And stay right there for a moment. Now, I know we don't want to leave that moment. But look into that little girl, that little boy's eyes. lovingly as you always would want to, and as always you would have wished. Make sure they know that you love them and you will never leave. And as you do, let them drift back into your subconscious mind, happy, contented, smiling, and loving back up at you as the adult that we all are right now. And when you're ready, and there's no rush, let's begin to return to the room, but only when you're ready. Love you all. Thank you for being here with me today. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.